I saw Glenn Beck's national simulcast at the movie theater last month, attacking the Common Core. Until recently, education has been off the front pages, and now Common Core has exploded all over the country. In education, we still lag behind many of the 20 leading industrial countries in performance. While most of the previous attempts in the last 30 years to improve our levels of education have failed, we should have little hope in institutional change in education. Many college freshmen cannot read or compute math to pass entry exams without having to go through remedial education first. The Common Core must be grappled with to determine its benefit, or let's plan to end it now. There has been no long-term studies on Common Core, therefore your children are being field tested right now. I have with me an expert, Mary Calamia, who's a clinical social worker.
Correct, yes.
And the founder of Long Island Unit Against Common Core?
Long Islanders United Against the Common Core, correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't spell it right.
That's okay.
All right, so that we can bring everyone up to speed, what is it? What is Common Core?
Well, Common Core is what's going on in the schools throughout the country. It is a set of standards that the federal government basically forced upon the states to adopt, and all curriculum has to be aligned to those standards. They were meant to be minimal standards, which would be fine if they were the minimal standards, but basically what's happening as a result of teacher evaluations and standardized testing, we are teaching directly to the bare minimum standards that the federal government set forth in 2010.
2010.
Yes, and what they did was they tied federal funding to the adoption of the standards. If you didn't take the standards, you didn't get the money. So 45 states and the District of Columbia took the money, took the standards, and are teaching to them.
We always say follow the dollar, right?
Follow the money. Always follow the money, yep.
Well, I understand that some teachers are against it. A
Yes.
significant number of teachers are
Yes.
against it. All right, so why would they be, how many are against it? Maybe I should talk about the percentages. Do you have any idea?
I would say that probably the vast majority of teachers are against it. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to speak out against it. There's a gag order in many school districts. Many teachers are, we see them on Facebook posting under fake names,
Wow.
because they are terrified. They've been told that if they say anything against the Common Core, they will be brought up on disciplinary charges and will be relieved of their positions. We've had quite a few teachers come forward, very brave teachers
That reeks
come
of
forward.
socialism, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
Let's see, let's pose a problem. What about illegal immigrants who might be in the classroom?
Well, everybody would be given the same education. Everybody gets the same education. The Common Core is everybody gets the same thing, the same way, and at the same pace. Now, if an immigrant or an illegal immigrant comes into the country and cannot speak a word of English, that's going to be handled differently. But if they speak enough English, they're going to be given the same thing, the same way, and at the same pace, and they're going to take those tests in English. The standardized tests that you keep hearing about, the tests.
How does anybody expect that that's going to work?
It's not working. 70% of all New York State students have failed the test 2 years in a row. So it's not working.
Well, when did they give up on it?
When the money dries up, I suppose. Right now, the money trail, the companies that are writing curriculum and that force this is born of what we call the public-private partnership. We hear that expression a lot, and it sounds so good. Oh, the government and big business working hand in hand. What's happened is the absolute worst of runaway government and crony corporatism. This is a marriage of the two. And there are companies making money. The worse kids do, the more money they make. They're writing testing materials, test prep materials, teacher prep materials. They're making money hand over fist.
How much money could there be available?
Zillions. I mean, just beyond your
Because it's
wildest
national.
imagination. Yes.
Because it's very big.
Yes.
Okay. Size doesn't matter, I guess. State governments using the old radical tactic of just changing the name and repackaging to fool the public. I don't know, I think I got that from you.
Yes, they are. Different states have supposedly removed Common Core from the classrooms, but it comes in under another name.
Right.
And now if you see college and career ready anchor standards, college and career ready anchor standards is Common Core. But they changed the name. When the federal government shoved this down our throats, what Congress basically voted on was that states, in order to get Race to the Top funding, they would have to adopt college and career-ready standards. So all of the congressmen say, we didn't say you have to have Common Core. You had to have college and career-ready standards. The piece that they leave out of the discussion is the only college and career-ready standards that qualified were the Common Core standards.
Was it the only one available?
It was the only one that qualified.
Okay.
New York State had standards ready and written and ready to go, but they didn't qualify.
Do you happen to know what that qualification was? Missing?
There's a whole bunch of,
yeah.
I could spend a day telling you the criterion.
Well, I've seen some of the angry comments by parents too, so I don't think a lot of people are happy with this. How long can it survive with that much negativity attached to it?
We're hoping to take it down, because every day we see new parents coming into the fight. Every day the force multiplier is in effect. We're educating parents. We're getting out there and telling them, what's going on in the schools. They're shocked. They're surprised. They don't know why their kid is coming home crying or throwing up or doesn't want to do the homework. We have, for the first time in New York, we're so proud to say we have 100,000 signatures on petitions to get a Stop Common Core ballot line on the ballot for November.
Yeah,
so it's going to be an actual Stop Common Core party, and that took 62 counties worth of angry parents out there petitioning. In a 6-week period, they got 100,000 signatures.
That's nice. Yeah. School choice. We talk about choice in other areas, but choice is an important part of our Americana. So the parents aren't really choosing to be in this place. They're not choosing to accept the curriculum themselves. They seem to be relatively unhappy with it. I don't see this carrying on very long. Am I right?
Well, unfortunately, at a legislative level, it's carrying on. We have.
How long have you been at the fight?
2 years. And we have angry parents. We had a lobby day in June. We took 250 people up to Albany to meet with legislators. And we've made some headway. We've made some great headway. We've had bills written by Assemblyman Graff and Ed Rah and Senator Lee Zeldin to try and get it out of New York State, but it's not moving. The rest of the legislature, they're not getting behind it.
How is it? Is it bipartisan by any chance? It seems like it is.
It's the bills were written by Republican legislators, but we have had bipartisan support on both sides, the Senate and the Assembly.
You mean in opposition to Common Core?
Oh no, the Common Core opposition. Oh yeah, it's absolutely bipartisan. This is not a conservative issue. This is not a Tea Party issue, although the media would like you to believe that. If you watch certain news programs, like for instance NBC, their education reporting is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Right. So of course they're getting on there saying it's a Tea Party issue and trying to promote.
Aren't they partners or in some way financially
Bill and Melinda
rewarded?
Gates are the roots of the Common Core.
Not the curriculum itself, but
it's
the
born,
financial
absolutely.
backing.
Every time you see something like the Catholic schools adopting it, every time you see it make headway, Common Core makes headway, there's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation money behind it.
Let's talk about the math problem that you and I talked about.
Sure.
Briefly. Yeah. I can't make any sense out of it. It looks very strange to me.
Okay, I know you're going to be putting this up on a graphic, so I'll read it from here. But this is a typical problem that they might give a 7 or 8 year old in school. We teach to add by teaching them to subtract first. There's something called scaffolding. When we learn, you think about scaffolds. You get on a scaffold, and it's wobbly. So you're supposed to wait. You get on the scaffold, and let it stop before you move to the next one. It's the same thing with learning. You want to learn something, learn a skill, and then move to the next skill and the next skill. But they don't master anything. They go right from one thing to the next to the next. So we're going to teach addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division all in the same 48-hour span of time.
Amazing.
So you'll have a problem. Common Core likes tens. So add 26 plus 17. We don't like that. There's no tens in there. So we have to turn something into a 10. So we want to take the 6 in that 26 and turn it into a 10. So you'll have to take 6 plus 4 is 10. So where are you getting that 4 from? Well, you're going to take it from the 17. So if you look at the instructions, it'll say use a number that adds with the 6 and the 26 to make a 10. Since 6 plus 4 equals 10, use 4. think 17 equals 4 plus 13. Think about a 7 or 8-year-old. I can't even understand
I can't even
these.
remember what the beginning was.
Exactly. I don't even remember what we were trying
Yeah.
to solve.
Yeah.
But this is a standard type of problem that has kids, they got their head on their desk, they're crying, it's overwhelming. And then after you get your answer, then you have to write several sentences explaining how you arrived at that answer.
Yeah, that'll take all day.
For every problem that you do.
What happened to the traditional math? Because I know at some point we went to a new math and then we had another new math. Do you remember hearing about
Yeah,
that?
math has gone through
Yeah, it's gone through a lot of
a lot of
transitions.
transitions. You know, you talked about in the opening, you talked about where we stand with other countries. And we've been trying to reinvent the wheel with education for probably 50 years.
Right.
Our scores compared to other countries are in the exact same place they were 50 years ago. That hasn't budged. We've always been in the middle of the pack. We've been reinventing the wheel, but ask yourself, 50 years ago, we were still in the middle of the pack. We put a man on the moon.
I don't think we should be in the middle of the pack, though.
We put a man on the
there's
moon.
always
We led the
exceptions.
world
Yeah.
in patents. We're a superpower, and we managed to
But
do that somehow from the middle of the
we're
pack.
capitalists, I think.
That's probably a good part of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we have the energy to create.
There's
and
too
to
many
open
other
up, right?
variables to say, well, your scores compared to your scores compared to your scores. There's way too many variables. You take the Finnish population, where they talk about Finland all the time, they're all the same. It's a homogeneous culture. And you're comparing it to the United States, where we have about 25% poverty, and poverty is one of the biggest indicators of school failure.
You know, when things get too consistent, you get kind of bored, and,
Yeah.
and they have the highest suicide rate in the world. That could be
Well,
one of the
they're
reasons.
up there. They're
Yeah.
absolutely up there, yes.
Yeah, one of the highest. Anyway, there's a good reason, right, for
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
So do you consider this wholesale propaganda?
Well, yeah, absolutely. They keep repackaging it. They keep changing names. We have one of the latest initiatives is something called the Future Ready Project, where they're engaging superintendents of schools to sign a pledge to do things in their schools that will actually solidify Common Core in the schools, even if the state takes it out. They just, future ready, it sounds great. There's smart, everything has smart in front of it. There's
Yeah.
smart grants and smart projects, and if you don't take it, you must be stupid, right?
I see nothing but complicated mess out in front of us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, math, what happened to fractions? What happened to memorization?
Yeah, no, that's out. That's out. The Common Core tries to teach more about less. They're trying to teach children to do what they consider to be critical thinking. And critical thinking is exactly what our goal is for children, except that they're just not biologically wired for it.
It's not age appropriate. Then.
It's not age appropriate. They're not wired for it. To think critically requires a fully developed prefrontal cortex. It's a part of the brain that does not really fully develop until the early 20s. So I always say when you're...
And men later than women.
And
boys
well,
later than girls, yeah.
we could argue that for days that maybe they never get that, but I always say that asking an 8-year-old to think critically is like saying I can teach a child to do critical thinking is like saying I can teach a man to menstruate. It's not in the stars. It's just not it's not physically possible.
So let's say that we were to invent, I mean, I'm not going to ask you to create a whole curriculum, but we would to invent something that would work, because obviously I can't see this working. I was a former teacher, so I have an idea what
Yeah,
curriculum is all about.
Right.
So I don't see this working at all. This is going to be very sloppy, very complicated, and kids aren't going to get through it. They're going to be more frustrations and more of these programs that you're talking about you have to sign on to get out of the situation,
Exactly.
right? Or to get your mental health back.
But you get deeper into the
to
situation.
get your mental health back at any one point, or is it
Well,
always going to be going the opposite direction?
It's on a slippery slope here. All of these programs, there's big bucks attached to them, there's always money attached to them, and they take the bait because these schools, this was an unfunded mandate. So they didn't give us enough money. They gave us $700 million in the state of New York to implement this. It's cost at least twice that to implement it.
Surprise, surprise.
So
that
there's a
always goes
slippery
up.
slope. These poor districts, they have to go in and they take the bait, they drink the Kool-Aid, and the next thing you know, they have another banner under their name that is Common Core under another name. And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
So in other words, you're telling me it's like, I don't want to use the abortion thing as an example, but it's a good example, how abortion was originally a health and safety issue. And they got the law passed because doctors were being handcuffed and going to jail when they performed one, and there were many unfortunate deaths at the time from women who would go to these abortions without the mental health process being normal. And then it became choice. The narrative became choice, and that took over reality of where we started with the whole abortion issue, because I was there in the beginning picketing for abortion before Roe v. Wade. So I remember its inception very well.
Right.
I don't see this being any different in some respects.
It's very similar. They've found a way to make money on the backs of children. And so any way they can get in, anything they can invent to sell more curriculum, more books, more study guides, more anything to this technology, they're going to out-technologize. We're not going to need teachers anymore. They're not going to need teachers anymore. Anybody can pick up the script and read it to the class. Right now, the teacher picks up a script and it's timed, and they read it to the class, and that's how they're teaching, in math and ELA at least right now.
They're not. So the future of teaching is definitely in jeopardy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%.
So why wouldn't the teachers be upset about
They're
this?
very upset about this.
Yeah, that's why I asked you before about
Yeah.
the percentage, about
But
the numbers of teachers.
The numbers are off the charts, but they have to
can't
be
say
very
anything.
careful. We have teachers
What a
telling us.
strange world we live in.
It's a very strange
Oh my
world.
God. Oh. Well, let's see. Michelle Malkin I've seen her twice now talking about the subject, and
Yeah.
I get the general feeling that because her kid is having difficulty in algebra.
Michelle Malkin is one of the first people to really identify the problem that the Common Core is. She's great. Probably the problem we have with somebody like Michelle Malkin being at the forefront is because she's a well-known conservative.
Yeah.
They tie it up as a conservative issue. This is not a conservative issue. This is a left-right issue, and I wanted to mention
Absolutely, we should make that point. We should drive that point home.
We have a book coming out any minute now called Common Ground on the Common Core, and it's voices from the left and the right who have come together. There's 22 essays in the book.
Isn't it a shame you have to do that all together?
It's a terrible shame, but we've had to come together, people from the left and the right. We've covered this topic from one end to the other, and to show that we stand in unity. Both sides of the aisle stand in unity. This has got to go. This
Yeah.
is out of control.
It's amazing how we baloney ourselves with things that can work just to profitize something.
We have a government that doesn't want to listen, and we have corporatism that's out of control at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just a marriage of two devils.
I'm for competition. I think that's the best way. I wish the charter schools would have a lot more to say about.
Competition would be good.
Yeah.
We thought at least the private schools could provide some of that competition, but unfortunately they're getting stuck with Common Core as well.
Well, previous to the Common Core, parochial schools were using curriculum guidelines that were public school oriented.
Yeah, that's true. They've had to do the same thing. They've been
Right.
forced because some of them have actual federal money coming in, and some of them it's because all the standardized tests, the SATs, ACTs, they're all going to be aligned to the Common Core. So the kids and the Regents
no choice.
exams,
They
the
have to
kids
kind of like
the
that.
kids are stuck. The schools are stuck.
Let's say that you stop it. Let's say that you're successful, and I would like to hurry up.
Sure.
Okay.
York
Hurry up
State-
and be successful.
New York State had a set of standards all ready to go, college and career ready, that are actually quite good, that were written by our regents, and they could be implemented in one school year. They could just turn around and substitute them for the Common Core standards. We put a man on the moon.
Are you telling me we're trapped as a parent?
We're very trapped. We built an amazing country, men and women who went to school in one-room schoolhouses. This teachers know how to teach. This isn't rocket science. Let the teachers teach. Their hands are tied.
I mean, they wouldn't learn on their own, especially in the early ages. Where are you going to get that information from?
Teachers know how to teach.
Where do you start? Sure.
They know how to teach, and let them do it. Let the teachers decide. Let the school districts decide the curriculum. Nobody knows their kids better than they do.
I'm curious to why the parochial schools took up the charge. I know we just talked about the possibility of having to do that to follow the guideline, but doesn't it seem that they didn't have to do that as
The Bill and Melinda Gates
you know what I'm saying,
Foundation.
right? I can't really come up with the answer.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hosted some, we call them Kool-Aid brunches, where they spent a whole lot of money and they got into the Catholic schools, the parochial schools, and they gave them some grant monies, and what was attached to it was adopting Common Core standards. So they're stuck, and they take federal money. They take federal funds. A lot of the parochial schools take federal funds.
Usually when something doesn't work, and I can't wrap my head around the fact that money is coming into the system to feed it. And when something doesn't work, you cut off the feed line. You can't do that so easily.
Yeah.
So when you want change to occur, you try to have change occur with something to replace what was. Are you prepared to, take that front of some other type of curriculum that would work and would?
Well, we could have the curriculum. Like I said, we have standards ready to go. The money, they can keep their money. It's a bargain if we get rid of Common Core, because implementing it has cost us so much money. And Common Core is data driven. They're selling children's data. They're uploading data to all different places for the purposes of marketing, for the purpose they say it's for the purpose of making education better, but anybody can get that data under FERPA, which is the federal privacy laws for education.
Yeah.
A school can release information without parental consent if they deem it necessary. So deeming it necessary is a very, very broad spectrum of possible nefarious uses.
Another tied situation to that in our family law, because that's most of the programming I do, is that if you're a non-custodial parent, you can't just walk up to the other school if you're trying to get grades or something from a teacher. There's something called a Buckley Amendment, which says that any non-custodial parent can get the same information the custodial parent has, but in reality that doesn't work.
Yes,
you have to chase it down.
But if
you
you're
have to get connected to the
Amazon.com,
teacher eye to eye, and they get to like you first.
If you're Amazon.com, I suspect you can get all of that information. You can get anything you want. They have everything from, grades, health, family situation, family status, how their parents voted, whether there are guns in the house, all kinds of questions that these kids are filling out surveys left and right, answering all kinds of very personal questions that are being uploaded. And
So
they're
backing themselves up with statistics that are hard, they're present.
Well, they're selling you children's data. They're selling it. They're making money on the children's data.
Okay, when you say they, you're really talking about?
The schools, the companies, the corporations, a company like Pearson, which is one of the biggest stakeholders in the Common Core.
The publishers?
The publishers, yes, absolutely. They're using that to decide, well, what can we do next? What products can we sell? How else can we get into their heads? How else can we get into their homes? The ELA exams last year and the year before, actually.
What's ELA?
English Language Arts. The reading passages for reading comprehension, they had product placement in them. Why is it necessary that a child is reading a product, an actual
like
name
Heinz
of a
ketchup or something?
Yeah, exactly. Right in the reading
Ooh,
passages.
said the wrong thing.
Oops.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Why is it necessary? Why can't they make up the name of a ketchup that's not a national brand? But those products are right in there. And they weren't things like ketchup, they were things like root beer,
years
candy.
ago they didn't do that at all. I remember they did
Yes.
make fake up names.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, they was just Jones and Smith.
Well, the companies are getting right into the schools. They're sponsoring, there's posters of products throughout some schools. It's all money, it's all big money. The schools are hurting, and the only way they're going to survive is by getting an influx of money.
Let's go backward just a little bit
Sure.
about American history and things like photosynthesis, which I heard, and also I heard science too. Maybe, well, especially let's do American history. That's really the biggest one to me.
push.
They're changing it
Yeah.
to what?
Well, push, AP US history. They have the standards are not the American history that you and I went to school and learned.
So how did history change?
Well, history
Just a joke.
history can be revisionist.
Yeah, well, yeah, we know.
History can be revisionist. We don't teach the Constitution. We teach the
Isn't that propaganda?
United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. We don't talk about George Washington. We don't talk about the Revolution, because we don't want anybody knowing about that. That's probably not a good idea to get into people's heads. The way the U.S. history is written now is really with the U.S. as the bad guy.
Yeah.
Well,
we've been hearing that from, I hate to say this, I'm sorry, but I have to do it. The political left has been doing that for a long time. America doesn't belong here.
Well,
It
who do you
shouldn't be
think-
the
yeah.
world's policeman. It shouldn't be competing. There's
Yep.
always competing interests, and everything is a corporate challenge of some kind.
Well, the people with the money and the people with the most power get to write the dialogue, and they're writing the dialogue now. And that's what you're seeing in the schools. So AP US History, Texas, fortunately, actually just passed a proposition that they must adhere to the Texas state standards and not what's in the AP US History, because it's garbage what they're teaching.
So you're going to have things like Washington crossed the Delaware, and now it's not the Delaware anymore. It's the Bronx River or something.
Some guy was the father of our country, but we don't need to talk about him. We teach the Gettysburg Address, but we don't teach about the Civil War. They're just supposed to imply what the Gettysburg Address might be about.
Okay.
It's
it was
crazy.
an important part of history.
Insane.
Yeah, it does
sounds
sound crazy.
insane, but if you look up APUSH, AP US History.
Yeah, I put it right in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've changed everything. I can't wait to see what they do to chemistry.
Well, that's a science. Come on.
This is our first year of Common Core Science in New York State, and I just heard that they're starting with physics in like, third grade physics, kindergarten physics. I mean, could you pick a more unexciting and difficult science to start with? They're starting with physics.
So this sounds like a game plan here.
But we're supposed to be getting children on a career path for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
So you want to just so upset them that they can't learn and they're going to just drop it.
Correct.
They're never going to go into that field now.
And if you take a child who has, like, for example, somebody who took the 7th grade exams last year and failed, which 70% of our kids did, and failed one of the exams, they go into something called AIS, which is Academic Intervention Services.
Oh, yeah.
It's extra help. They go into AIS in the 8th grade because they failed the 7th grade exam, and that now makes it impossible for them to take the advanced math or the advanced science. So in 8th grade, when they ordinarily could have taken 9th grade math or science,
it inhibits
they
their
cannot.
own individual growth.
Right, so that they will forever, ever, never be able to take AP Calculus or the AP Sciences because in 7th grade, they failed a test on material that they hadn't learned or been taught or anything else. It's absurd. So that child will forever be stuck in regular track, and that shuts them out of Ivy League. It shuts them out of top-tier colleges. How are we getting more competitive? I don't see where we're getting more competitive.
Doesn't seem to be there. And Mary was speaking with Mary Calamia from Long Islanders United Against Common Core. Let's talk. What challenges do you have in front of you right now to help yourselves out?
Getting legislators elected, getting right now we're sitting on 40-something days ahead of the elections.
Have you talked to your local people?
Yeah, my Assemblyman Al Graff is the one who started the conversation in New York State. He's the one who wrote the first piece of legislation for a full repeal of Common Core. So I'm very grateful to be in his district, but we're working with legislators. We're trying to get people elected into the state Senate and Assembly, and the governor and Congress who have promised to get Common Core out of New York State. So we're working like 24/7 now. That's our biggest challenge.
Sometimes, like when we tried to restrict, when the legislators tried to look at the Child Support Standards Act to see what was fair, when they chose gross income versus net income, we challenged it right away, and it just went away. And it stayed forever. We went away. I mean, even though we fought it, and the legislators themselves were saying this, we're doomed to failure. It's never going to work. It's too high a number to start with. It should be net income, not gross income. The people who passed the bill were not lined up with what it was like to earn a living. To pay taxes and to go gross income versus net income. We take the tax dollars away, you're still being charged at the higher percentage. It's such an abnormal percentage for the next person to go forward.
Yes,
it's kind
and
of like
our entire Board of Regents, with the exception of one regent, their children go to very, very hoity-toity private schools,
right.
and they're not in the public school system. They'll go to Harvard and Yale. They won't be going to community college. The Common Core curriculum right now is set to send children to two-year schools at the end of high school. That's what they're set up for. But you go to a Montessori school like John King's kids, they're going to Harvard and Yale.
Mary Calamia, thank you very much. It was a great program. You did a great job explaining it. It's a difficult thing to wrap my head around.
Thank you for having me.
I wouldn't know where to go, and I hope this program goes somewhere. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was our cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV, of course, every single week like we have been for several years. Thank you very much for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.